Assalamu alaikum. We're back again with another session on Sufism, and I am again here with Rachana, Umashankar, and my name is Tahira Naqvi, and hello, welcome, Assalamu alaikum on behalf of the Auliya Council of North America. Last time we were talking about Nizamuddin Auliya, and we had come to the point where we were discussing the idea of the Ganga Jamni culture of South Asia and how different it is. Sufism has been there as opposed to other places in the world, Turkey, for example, or some other places where, where we do have traditions of Sufism. And also we talked about the idea of inclusivity and how that has played out in a place like South Asia, as opposed to other places, because we are a culture where there are so many different kinds of religions and beliefs, and also peoples and traditions, and so many languages, all kinds of differences. Yet people have been able to come together, especially where the Sufis are concerned. They have been a force to bring people together from different walks of life, different kinds of people. And so when you are at a Sufi dargah, when you are, for example, at the shrine of Nizamuddin Auliya, you tend to forget who you actually are, and that whether the person sitting next to you or standing next to you is a Muslim or a Hindu or a Sikh or a Christian or anybody. I mean, it no longer is a matter of concern. And I think this is a very important idea, the idea that it is no longer a matter of concern, that the person you're standing next to, sharing a common purpose of devotion to the Sufi, is yours as much as it is his or hers. And Rachana, you were going to share a story with us. So I'm going to stop now and let you tell us that story.
Sure. So at the end of the previous video, you had asked me very specifically about this idea of inclusivity that does not erase difference, right? Inclusivity that acknowledges difference, but is yet able to make space for it and accept it. And that reminded me of a quote, really, in Persian, attributed to Hazrat Nizamuddin Auliya, and that is that we mentioned qawwali, which is a form of Sufi practice, musical practice that is very popular and common in the Chishti Sufi order, and was actually developed within the Chishti Sufi order, so this kind of musical ritual tradition was routinely practiced at the lodge, the Sufi Khanqa of Nizamuddin Auliya. And the story goes that he was challenged by someone that, you have all of this, music being played at the Sufi lodge. What do you think about that, right? You yourself are, such a devout Muslim. How do you square this? The use of music and musical instruments in
singing
in Islamic practice, Sufi Islamic practice, and Nizamuddin Auliya's response, which it's a beautiful play on words in Persian. So I'll say it in Persian, so you can hear the play on words, and then I'll translate into English, where, of course, the play on words is lost. So he says, in response to this challenge, and referring to music, he says, "In kar nami konam, vali in kar nami konam." And so the in kar here refers to this activity. And inkar, which is the play on words, means opposition, objection, rejection.
Right.
So he's, in reference to the use of music in ritual practice, Nizamuddin Auliya says, I don't do it, but I don't object to it.
Okay.
Right? So he models a kind of acceptance of difference where there is space for him to be him and space for the other to be the
himself.
other.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And yet they are both in the
together
same
in the same space. Yes.
Right? And that line has always touched me deeply.
Yes, yes.
You don't have to embrace completely, but you can maintain your sense of identity while having a respect for saying, yes, the other has as much a right to be as I do. Right? So yeah, I do not do it, but I do not object to it. In kar nami konam, vali in kar nami konam. And so for those of you who are, new to this video series, I may have mentioned this in some of the earlier videos. I'm an anthropologist. And so for my research, I spent about 1.5 years at different Sufi shrines, but especially Nizamuddin Auliya in Delhi, the shrine of Nizamuddin Auliya in Delhi, and then the shrine of his disciple's disciple in Gulbarga, which is the shrine of Khaja Banda Nawaz Ke Sudaraz. And interacting with Sufi teachers at these shrines, interacting with the scholars who were in residence at these shrines, who were, by the way, the folks who introduced me to this thing that Nizamuddin Auliya is supposed to have said. Their emphasis was, and I heard this repeatedly from people who had not met each other, that the emphasis, the reason that this kind of inclusivity is possible is because of the deep importance given, especially in the Chishti Sufi order, for the concept of niyyah or niyat. Or intention.
Intention. Yes.
That it is important to look beyond the surface level presentation and focus rather on the intent of a person. And so, okay, this person is singing and dancing, but what is the intent behind it, right? That the focus should go beyond the superficiality of presentation and delve deeper into the motivation, the impetus behind an action. And so that focus on niyat, I think, allowed the Chishti Sufis to grow ritually, to grow in terms of their worldview, to grow philosophically into what it is.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Which is that, okay, I'm, to quote Pope Francis, who am I to judge, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That the shrine is open to you. You come as long as your intent is good. That's enough.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So as long as you come with respect, as long as your intent is to learn and to be present, then what else does one need?
Yes.
So that again and again, so many people I interacted with at these Sufi shrines emphasized the importance of niyat. And I think that definitely clears space. Right. Suddenly it clears space when you're able to say, okay, superficially we're all different.
Yes.
But if at the core of it our intent is the same, then, as we say in Punjabi, ki fark penda hai?
Mitti pao. That is still, yes. But what is also interesting is that the intent may also not be the same, in the sense that there is also within that intent a huge amount of a scope for difference.
Yeah.
So my intent would be different from his intent or her intent. We're all together. We're all standing in a group.
Correct.
And we are all at that moment imbibing the presence of the saint.
Yeah.
And we are, completely drowning in it. But our intents may be entirely different.
Yeah. So the idea there is not that the intent must be the same.
Yeah.
but the intent must be sincere, that there must be a purity
Yes.
of intent, not the sameness of
But
intent,
exactly.
but the purity of
Purity
intent.
of intent. Yes. Yes.
So that is that, allows for that, what you talked about,
Yes.
this idea that I can be me and you can be you, and we can come together in our shared sincerity, our shared desire to
feel this
exactly.
devotion that we do. Yes, absolutely.
And that's why you see some concrete manifestations of that. For example, speaking of Qawwali, so again, for those of you who have not ever been to a Sufi shrine, are not familiar, very important Sufi ritual practice is something called sama. And sama comes from the Arabic word for listening, to listen. And a way to translate sama into English would be a ritual audition, or listening as a form of meditation, contemplation. And sama, the music or the chanting that goes with sama is wildly different depending on which culture you like. You have Qawwali as a form of sama in South Asia, but you have the sama of, say, the Mevlevi Sufis in Turkey. They sound very different.
Very different, absolutely.
Right? But the ritual is the same, which is that you're listening in order to, the way I explain it to my students, you're riding the wave of the sound, allowing yourself to drift into
it's transformative. It's transformative.
And TRANCE as well. Transformative as well.
Absolutely. Yes. Yes. And the trance has also had people. I mean, the trance has also been something that has been misunderstood.
Yeah, the wedged, the ecstatic state.
And people have been known to comment, well, this is not good and this is not proper, and you lose control of yourself, which is that big thing, where God is not happy with a situation where you lose control of yourself. And so talk a little bit about that. What is that losing control really mean? What is it?
So what Tahira ji is talking about is that often the ideal, actually, maybe not often, but the ideal is that when you're in a space of sama, when you're listening as an act of contemplation, that you are able to zone into the sound that you're listening to, whether it's a chanting, drumming, ecstatic singing like Qawwali, that you are able to immerse yourself and zone into that sound to such a great degree that you are then able to, I call it reaching escape velocity, that you are able to untether from the distractions, from the superficialities of the material world, and for that brief instance of ecstasy are able to feel that oneness with the divine. So the experience of wajd, or that ecstatic bliss is how I would characterize wajd, is a state of, losing oneself, but losing oneself into the divine. And so one may seem mad to those around you,
the onlookers,
but in your moments, you have now become part of the fabric of the divine, right? So, and it is brief, it is momentary, but it is that the sense of unmooring from this, from the world of the known, and wading into ever so briefly the world of the unknown, right? So that's how it's understood, and it is a trance state. And you'll see it in the shrines. At Nizamuddin Auliya, multiple times one sees it. The Qawwalis are, the Qawwals are singing, and then suddenly, it could be a man, it could be a woman, someone feels, is overcome is overwhelmed by the sound, the immersion in the sound, and might start spinning, might start flailing. And again, part of that space of inclusivity, I have never seen anyone try to shut it down. What usually happens is one of the people in charge, the crowd management people, right, will come and lead the person to a safer space where they can get through the throes of it. And then once they've settled down, they can be sort of come back. You just like, you don't want to hurt anybody. You don't want to hurt yourself. So there's always, again, there's space for all kinds of experience in that Sufi courtyard.
And that is something I think that we need to really understand, this whole idea of the Vajd and the going into a trance in a Sufi space, or with the Qawwali going on. Because people have, for example, I've known people to comment and to compare it to very loud pop music, and saying, that's not spiritual, and that is terrible, and the lyrics are awful. And why is it that we're sort of talking about two states which are so similar? Because the kids who are listening to that are also in a kind of trance. But I mean, this is a subject for another day as to what kind of trance the kids are in, and I think that's okay too. It's their kind of trance. But I think that the trance or the Vajd is something that also not only breaks you away from the material world, but is a kind of break from your inner self as well, which is preoccupied with so many unnecessary preoccupations and things. And so you're immediately caught up in the music, and then the music transports you into this other world of contemplation or something, that is just like looking at a beautiful sunset. And I've known people to go into Vajd by just looking at a beautiful sunset. So it's a kind of beauty, and that is divine as well.
Ecstatic bliss.
And that is ecstatic bliss, and it involves the divine, and this involves the divine. And the Qawwali is just a medium, as the sunset is a medium.
Absolutely. That's very well put. And I mean, as you said, you're right. The idea of Vajd, the idea of trance, another way to put it is an altered state of consciousness. That is a separate video in and of itself. We could spend another half an hour talking about that.
I think we've reached our time limit.
But
so anything you want to say before?
I guess the only thing I would add again in terms of like the that Ganga Jamni Tehzeeb, and which is so evident in Qawwali. Another way, just like a last thought, another way it gets manifested is that often these Qawwalis, many of them are written by Amir Khusro, but the way in which the Qawwals sing these Qawwalis, they're never static. They're always improvised. So every time you listen to it being sung, you'll always hear a different iteration of it, because the Qawwals are very adept at drawing, interspersing the verses that are part of the Qawwali with lines from other poets who are somehow speaking to the same truth, perhaps. And so it's not uncommon at all to be sitting at a Sufi shrine in Delhi, to be sitting at Nizamuddin Auliya in the courtyard, listening to, surrounded by people of different religions, listening to a Qawwali that is being sung in a mix of Persian, Urdu, Hindi, Sindhi, Punjabi, Rajasthani, right? Because the Qawwals are weaving together poetry from different, not only different Sufi tradition, not only the poetry of different Sufi poets, but also poets from the Hindu tradition. So you will hear a Qawwali where the Qawwali verses written by Amir Khusro is being woven in with the poetry of Mira. The poetry of Kabir. This is not uncommon. And again, it is at that point, it's not about, this poet is Hindu. Or this poet is, that Mira is a Hindu poet writing her poetry for Krishna, a Hindu deity. The idea there again is back to the niyat, right? That the poetry is speaking a certain truth that is echoed by the verses of the Sufi poet.
Yes, absolutely.
And in that moment, that is all that is important.
And that is the height of inclusivity, where you are not only in Islam, but you're at that moment in Islam, in Hinduism, in Christianity, in Sikhism, and everywhere. And yet the core is there, and you build on the core. And this is, I think, what Nizamuddin and the Sufis stood for and stand for. The idea that we can do this and yet be close to the divine as we envision the divine.
Yeah.
So it's a personal kind of relationship, but it's through all these different channels, and it's possible that we can do it.
Yeah.
And that is what is so remarkable.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Rachana. It's been a great afternoon of chat and conversation, and we will be back again. Perhaps we should talk more about the Qawwali next time.
Sure.
I think that
one of my favorite things
yes,
to talk about.
mine too. Thank you so much for listening. Khuda Hafiz.